Newcastle won, Manchester City won, and what a performance from Newcastle United. Lewis Hall was outstanding, their midfield was unbelievable, the work rate was crazy, and that was a proper Eddie Howe performance. Now, before I get into the match review, I do want to apologise if the camera quality isn't as good as normal. I've had so many technical issues. I'm having to use the default camera. It was either the camera or the mic, and the default camera I think is a bit better than the default mic. So I do apologise about that, but I want to get right into today's video. I want to talk about Newcastle, I want to talk about my 3 standout performance for Newcastle. I want to talk about Eddie Howe's tactics, and then I also want to talk about Arsenal and Liverpool and what this could potentially mean for Arsenal and Liverpool, and talk a little bit about Manchester City at the end and dropping points. But you can see by the statistics, 1-1 draw, but it wasn't like Manchester City dominated and didn't put their chances away. Newcastle, there was a period where I thought Newcastle could have won the game. Just after they made it 1-1, there was a 10-minute period where Manchester City could not cope with Newcastle, and Newcastle were all over them. You can see by the XG and the expected threat that I think the first half, despite going 1-0 down, Newcastle had a very good first half, and I think up until the goal, Manchester City's goal, Newcastle were the better team. Manchester City scored because they have that quality, and Guardiola, or maybe you can say Dan Burn could have done better there, but it was a fantastic goal from Manchester City and Grealish and Guardiola, and Newcastle go 1-0 down, and then City go into the game for 10 minutes, but then the second half, Newcastle, they score, and there's 10 minutes of Newcastle looking like they could win this game 2-1, fizzles out a bit, and then it's Newcastle defending for their lives. But the work rate from Newcastle United was incredible. They deserved at least a point out of that game. There was a period where I thought they were going to get 3, particularly because maybe they could have had another penalty. And I thought that they made it difficult for City. Manchester City could not break them down, and Manchester City could not deal with the counter press and the intensity of Newcastle United. And I have to say, as a Manchester United fan, the one thing that makes me very jealous is seeing how every single Newcastle player fights for the badge. The intensity of the Newcastle United players, we don't see that at Manchester United. The running, the giving it everything. I mean, there was a period where Joelinton near the end run back and put a tackle in. Antony Gordon's tracking back and putting in blocks. Like, every Newcastle player was getting their bodies behind the lines in this warrior type performance. And they were the better team. They wanted it more. They put every bit of effort into that game. They defended well. And Eddie Howe got his tactics spot on. You know Manchester City are one of the best possession teams in the league, if not the best. And you know when you play Man City, you've got to defend well, and to beat them, you've got to be a threat in transition. You've got to get out wide, you've got to defend well, you've got to frustrate them, and then that's what Newcastle did. They defended unbelievably well, a little bit like they did versus Tottenham Hotspur, and then they used the sheer pace of Gordon, and then I thought Murphy had a good game, and Barnes, and they went and caused City problems on the transition. They could not cope with Antony Gordon. Had Alexander Isak been there, he probably would have caused them even more problems. And the pressing from Newcastle from the front, it was making it difficult for Manchester City to play out from the back. Newcastle making it incredibly difficult for Manchester City. Gordon was absolutely excellent. No Isak, no problem for Newcastle United. It felt like Gordon was pressing and tracking back. My man of the match is Lewis Hall, and I do want to talk about Lewis Hall in more detail in a minute, but I did think Trippier played well. I thought Tonali, Joelinton, Bruno Guimarães in midfield. I think the technical quality of Tonali to tap the ball in tight spaces, very confident under the press. I think he had a good game. I think he had to come off because of cramp. Joelinton, I think, was a bit sloppy in the first half. On the ball, he gives the ball away, and he's not quite aware, but off the ball, it's a monstrous performance, almost playing every position. And Bruno Guimarães, we know, is a top player. And I thought Howe got his subs perfect. I think the Willock sub with his running power and his legs made a lot of sense. And I think the pressing, I think the work rate of Newcastle caused City so many problems. And I saw this tweet from Tom, which I think explains the game really well. That performance was a reminder how good this Newcastle team can be. Fantastic resolve and attitude with Eddie Howe at the helm. This squad will always fight for each other to the end. Arsenal are title favourites more than ever now. And Newcastle have done Arsenal a favour, potentially even Liverpool a favour. You never know. But the work rate, the desire, the everything from those Newcastle players was absolutely incredible. Absolutely incredible. And I want to talk about my man of the match, Lewis Hall. Everything Lewis Hall showed today is everything Enzo Maresca wants in a fullback, which is crazy because Chelsea have sold him FFP and all of that. But that is what Maresca would want. And, you know, I think Maresca must be sitting there thinking, oh, if I had this Lewis Hall kid, because he was exceptional for Newcastle today. His technical ability on the ball, outstanding. He demonstrated not just a strong defensive performance, but he was really good on the ball, going forward and putting crosses in. He is better on the ball than off the ball, but today, he off the ball put in a strong performance. I think Lewis Hall sometimes gets criticised for off the ball being caught out defensively. Today, against the best of the best, he put in a performance, and, you know, the goal didn't even come down his side. I think he dealt with it well. I thought his positioning was good. I think his reading was good. Wasn't playing anyone on side. He had a very difficult game. I think Savinho, had he been on longer, maybe would have caused him more problems getting down that right-hand side. But you know what? Lewis Hall, I thought, was fantastic today. And I think, for me, it's more his ability on the ball. I think when you're playing Manchester City, you can't afford to give the ball away. You've got to get your passing right, and that's what he does. His passing accuracy, his crossing ability, his ability to get up, and again, his pace, he can help on the outlet and transition, is fantastic. And I said in the Euros, if Luke Shaw isn't fit, maybe just take a Lewis Hall or someone at left back with a little bit of experience, and they didn't. And I'm not saying that he was ready to play for England in the Euros, but I do think an England call-up could be there for, of course, Lewis Hall, particularly with Shaw being a walking hospital bed. And, well, to be honest, there's not really many other options as well. I think he could probably get an England call-up. I think when it comes to delivering crosses, when it comes to corner duties, I'm surprised he's not tried on corners, because I think his crossing and his final ball was pinpoint. His technical ability to deliver that ball was fantastic. And yeah, his passing range, just allowing him to make these key passes, split the lines. And I think you can see him as a player. He's just defensively matured. His decision-making's matured. He was breaking the lines. He really helps Newcastle and build up. I think when Shaw was injured and then Kelly was at fullback, there was points where Newcastle was struggling and build up with Burn and all of that as well. But I think because Lewis Hall's so technically good, they looked a lot better in build-up as well. So Lewis Hall was my man of the match as well. But I do think the Newcastle midfield is really underrated. And Paddy said this: Newcastle have one of the best midfields in the world. Tonali, Joelinton and Bruno Guimarães would start for most teams in the world. Newcastle will do well this season. And I think Paddy is absolutely spot on. I think that Bruno Guimarães is just a technically unbelievable player, on the ball, off the ball creator. Tonali's really technically good in tight spaces. And then Joelinton, while he doesn't have the ability of Tonali and Bruno Guimarães on the ball, off the ball, Joelinton is this athletic monster. He's strong, he's fast, he's powerful, he can run further than anyone ever. And I think that's such a good blend to have. And then you've got players like Willock on the bench. I think Newcastle's midfield caused City problems today. Bruno Guimarães, everyone knows his quality. 1 possession 4 times, 4 out of 4 take-ons completed, 9 duels won. It was a monstrous defensive performance, winning 9 duels, but also 4 out of 4 take-ons completed. His carrying, his movement of the ball, winning the ball, 3 tackles, 2 interceptions. He created a chance. He's a creative outlet while also being good defensively. Bruno Guimarães is a player I'd love at Manchester United. And then I thought Joelinton had a good game. Joelinton was getting slandered online. I've seen a lot of Joelinton slander on the timeline, but I thought he was good today. I think he played a versatile role. I think there was times he was a left back, there was times he was a left centre back, he was a left mid, he was a left attacking mid, he was a left centre mid. He was everywhere today, and he seems to be like that outlet player that, maybe isn't the best on the ball and does give the ball away and has an error in him. But off the ball, you cannot doubt his work rate and everything he gave for Howe today. He was pushing City off the ball. He was winning the ball back. He could have won a penalty. His defensive work was exceptional. There was a last-minute tackle he made where he came from behind. He made some blocks. He made some interceptions. There was sloppy moments, but I thought he put in a monstrous defensive performance. In the corners, he was heading it away, and I think he helped Newcastle get the clean sheet, and he was a big part of that. I think he was covering at centre-back, midfield, the wing positions. He never stopped running. He never stopped closing down players, and I think him and Bruno Guimarães won the most fouls of any other player on the pitch and won the most duels as well. They were duel-winning monsters, and the reason that Newcastle were the better team is they were better in midfield because they were winning the duels. Newcastle were winning the second balls. They were winning the duels. They were dominating the midfield. They were dominating the ground, despite that being City's area of speciality, and I think that's why Newcastle were the better team today. I think Joelinton sometimes needs to look over his shoulder. There was an attack that he killed out, but I thought off the ball, we put in a shift. Kieran Trippier has been getting a lot of slander lately, and I personally think that Grealish just did really well for the goal, and I wouldn't actually give Trippier slander for that. I actually thought Trippier had a good game. Progression via pass 5.59, which is pretty insane as well. He had one of the highest expected threats of the game. I think that he was causing issues, and I felt that out wide Newcastle were the better team, and I felt that obviously in attack, the counter press and everything was causing issues. But this brings me to the end of the video, where we're looking at the league table here. And to be fair to Newcastle, 5th place, considering you've played Tottenham and City, is a good place to be in, because Newcastle haven't been anywhere near their best, but they had been picking up results, but they hadn't been near the best. But I thought today was prime Newcastle, was an Eddie Howe performance. But now, if Arsenal win, they can go top. If Villa win, they can go top. If Liverpool win, they can go top. It's really opened up the title race here. City dropping points yet again, and I think it could be Arsenal's season with Rodri out. I think maybe Liverpool could do it, but they didn't have a good chance to the window. I think it's going to be a really interesting end to the title race. It'll be interesting to see. The games are going on. I meant to start recording this video like 10 minutes ago, but then my cameras and everything broke, so I'm a little bit behind, but Arsenal have just gone 1-0 up. But also, guys, before you leave the video, please do go ahead and hit that like button. Of course, subscribe down below if you're new. But there's going to be a link in the description to go ahead and vote for Alice Talks Football in the Football Content Awards. I've been nominated for Best in Video, I've been nominated for Best Club Content Creator Premier League, and I've been nominated for Best Influencer. There will be a link in the description where you can vote me in the Football Content Awards. It would be absolutely amazing if you could. There's people like Fabrizio Romano in one of my categories, so I don't think I'm going to win, but every vote will mean a lot. Thank you for watching. Bye.